So how can people make different inferences about the same data? Well, data implies that it's not information or knowledge. So I'm going to assume right now that the data is raw numbers. So if I'm looking at some data, let's say it's 10 or 12 numbers representing scores of a game, I might assume that those are scores from the same game at different times during the day. Or they could be the final scores for different games over different time periods. The point here is that the amount of data we're looking at, or the time at which the data was collected, or how often the data was collected, in other words, is it a population of data, in other words, all the possible data points, or are they just selected data points? And were the selected data points collected at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, randomly throughout multiple weeks? We don't know when we just look at the data. That's the reason why it's data and not information and knowledge. So somebody could certainly assume that that data represents all the possible values, while someone else would assume that the data is just a sample of values for a particular day. The person who thinks it's all possible values might think that this is all the knowledge and information about the system which the data was collected on, and make decisions, okay, that are different than someone who saw that, well, this is just one particular day. In fact, that day was a Friday, and we know that productivity or output or the scores are bad on Fridays because half the players are gone doing something else, and on a Monday, the score would have been much better. One person knowing that extra information, let's call it extra information bias, would cause them to make a different conclusion than someone who didn't have that extra information, right? Or someone who might have a bias for wanting the information to mean something else. Even if a person knew, for example, that the scores, if collected on particular days, would be different, generate different means, different standard deviations, different values, they might use that to their advantage by trying to convince other people of a conclusion, of an outcome that would obviously not be true, but it's something they want those people to believe, right? So they could use it as a form of coercion, right? Or